Greetings brothers, today we're going to talk how to kill Drukhari Raiders efficiently as a Blood Angels player. Welcome to the Weekly Tactics video. I'm John, the Blood Angels Commander. If you'd like to see weekly Blood Angels videos and content, then please consider subscribing. So today's video is going to be broken into 5 parts. Part 1, we'll check out the Drukhari Raider. Part 2, we'll just see how survivable they are in some Math Hammer. Part 3, we're going to look at the efficiency per 100 points, so we know just exactly what is going to do the most damage most efficiently on the tabletop. Then we'll talk tactics and my final thoughts, so make sure you stick around for that at the end. So what exactly is a Drukhari Raider and why is it scary? Well, I mean, it's a transport for 85 points, that's toughness 6 and 10 wounds, a 4+ save and a 5+ invulnerable save that actually makes it crazy good. So, 85 points, what's it equipped with? Well, it's got that Dark Lance, which is kind of like a Las Talon, only better, like 36 inches, strength 8, -4, d3 +3, so it will be swingy on their 3+ ballistic skill, but if it hits and wounds, it's going to do a lot of damage if you can't save at -4. And then in melee, it's got 3 attacks, -1 AP, 1 damage. I'm not so worried about the melee. The Dark Lance is definitely scary, especially on an 85 point transport with an invulnerable save. So the transport also takes 11 Drukhari Infantry, so you can expect to see something like witches inside there. And bear in mind, these vehicles are open topped, which means any units inside there are free to shoot in the shooting phase of the enemy model as if they weren't in the vehicle, right? So they're very free to shoot, and this protects their weaker infantry. You know, most of their infantry will have toughness 3, so this protects them for 85 points and gives them great counter charge capabilities, because if we cannot kill the vehicles in our shooting phase and we end up charging them, chances are that they'll be able to charge us then freely in their turn, and they'll be able to inflict a lot of damage. So primarily Blood Angels armies that run like a lot of melee heavy units, we're going to have a tough time against these Drukhari threats. You really need to pop open the transports and get to the weaker innards as quickly as possible. So how we're going to do that is basically through the shooting phase. So in the next 3 slides I took 27 different weapons that we can take, and I fired them all essentially at a raider and worked out just how many shots and wounds you will need to destroy the raider. Now, orange is going to be the number of shots you need if your ballistic skill is 3 up. For example, in this first cell with the bolt guns, if you take 90 shots, you're going to, hit on 3 ups, that gives you 60, so then you'll need to make 60 wound rolls to kill the raiders with bolt guns. Now, we've looked at all the different weapon options here. Angelus bolters are basically, you need 67 shots. Executioner bolters from the heavy intercessors, 33 shots. Onslaught cannons, surprised me, 67 shots. That's a crazy number of shots. Flamestorm cannons in at 15. Hellblasters, supercharged with assault plasma, so the squad that gets 15 shots, 5 guys, 3 assault shots per model. They only need 16.7, so they're interesting. Inceptors also need the same, 16.7, if they are going to high power their guns. Accelerator autocannons on our suppressors are the same, 17, 16.9 sort of. The macro plasma on the Redemptors that I like to run is 13.5 shots. The twin Volkite coverings on the Contemptor, the Relic Contemptor that people very much like, needs 30 shots. I haven't factored in mortal wounds here, but still, it's going to be a lot of shots because the mortal wounds are so swingy. The Whirlwind with the Vengeance Launcher, same 17, and then 10 crack missiles to kill an 85 point transport. It's kind of insane. That 5 triple plus is providing so much value. So let's look at slide 2 here, where we continue looking through popular options. Las Cannons, 10 shots. Multi-Meltas, 10 shots. Heavy Melta Rifles, 6.7. Grav Flux on the Leviathan is basically the same 17. Grav Cannons from Devastators are not good, 68. The Hercules pattern autocannon, I don't remember off the top of my head who has that, but it's 13.5. We then have the Venator neutron laser and the laser volley cannon from both, I think it's the Sicarian Venator and the heavy laser destroyer. And if these things stay immobile, which is what it is in green, then they do a flat 6 damage. So if they stay immobile, and they do both have good range, I think it's 48 on the neutron laser and 36 on the volley cannon, you're looking at like 5.4 and 6.7. So these units are getting pretty interesting. Bear in mind, all these orange numbers are just on BS3, so if you had a Tech Marine there to put them on BS2, the orange would reduce. I even looked at the Falchion super heavy tank. So the Falchion's main cannon, which is basically going to average 4 shots per turn, because it's 2d3, it's not even going to kill one of these transports, and that's a cannon on an 800 point tank. This is crazy to me, but again, it could be a little bit less if you had the Tech Marine. Heavy melter rifles, 6.7, which is surprising because point for point, I've said it many times, Eradicators are some of the strongest units in the game, and I think when I started looking at this comparison, you would have thought that these strength 7 minus 1 damage, or sorry, strength 7 minus 1 AP would be the ideal numbers, but you know, nothing is performing well against these. If we keep moving on, the Twin Macro Accelerator on the Strayus super heavy tank is a heavy 12 weapon, and it's going to need 13.5 shots to kill one. So even that is not looking so strong. And then if we move on to the third slide, we also took the Storm Cannon from the Leviathan Dreadnought. So if you have double Storm Cannons now, you get 16 shots. You need 16.9. It's just crazy. The Fire Strike Autocannons, they have a 2+ ballistic skill, so their numbers have been changed, so they only need 13.5 shots. Hellblasters with just your regular plasma incinerators, not overcharged, will need like 16.9. Heavy plasma on the Contemptor, supercharged, only 13.5. And then basically the Twin Volkite on the Leviathan would be 45 shots. So looking at all these numbers, and even just the raw number of shots. Now, you can improve the number of shots that you get with a Tech Marine. You can improve that with like Chapter Master rerolls, or just having a captain around. So the orange number can be lowered, but I mean, if you want to pause and flick back the video, look at the pink number, and the pink number is how many wounds you need to make. So you essentially need to wound these raiders like 11 times with the storm cannons. That 5+ invulnerable save is providing them insane value on such a cheap transport, you know? Okay, so looking through all that, like I noted down really what I thought was like the notable units, the units that are actually going to be able to kill these things without needing like 18 shots or something, because a lot of the numbers were very, very high. So the notable units for me then were the attack bikes with multi-meltas and the storm bolters, the Hellblasters with assault plasma incinerators, the Leviathan Dreadnought with the storm cannons and Volkites, the heavy melter rifle eradicators, the Venator with the neutron laser, and also maybe like 2 las cannons and a heavy bolter on here. And you know, a lot of the time I argue, or maybe I don't argue, when people submit lists to me, I always recommend when you're running your Sanguinary Guard, run them in squads of 7 to 9, and I usually say the bolters are by far the best choice. Maybe you take 1 infernal pistol in the squad, that's usually how I like to run it. But I mean, here's an argument right here for like half the Sanguinary Guard to be running infernal pistols, because if you do not open those transports up to get to the units inside, then the units inside are going to make your next turn an absolute nightmare, right? And if you're running up against like 4 or 5 of these raiders, you know, the game, I've heard a lot of horror stories about people playing Drukhari. I'm trying to get a live game against Drukhari on my channel soon, but I just want to be aware that like maybe Sanguinary Guard with a bunch of infernal pistols is a little bit more viable for this. It does hamper you against some other matchups, but like I always say, and one of the reasons I always say to include 1 or 2 infernal pistols is if the combat does run on back into your turn, then you get to shoot your infernal pistols in combat, and you can usually get some good value out of that. So maybe here is the argument for 50% of the squad. So 4 infernal pistols, and like, you know, if you do start losing units and the combat does run on, then obviously those infernal pistols can end up doing a lot of damage, just because they can do basically 8 damage at 3 inches or less. So then we're going to look at efficiency for some of the top performers and some other units as well. Now, you might want to pause the video and check the slides back. However, if you do want quick access to all the slides I make every week, then you can just click the big join button underneath the YouTube video, or you can go into the description below and actually follow us on Patreon, and there's different perks you can get, including access to all these slides. So let's start with efficiency, top performers, and as you know, I run a Tap Bite multi-melta, so let's start there. The multi-meltas on average will do 6.22 shots, the storm bolters will do 1.33, that gives us a total of like 7.5 damage, so not even enough to kill a raider. And then what I've done here is I've then divided it down to work out the damage per 100 points. So essentially, for 100 points spent in the squad, we do 4.6 damage. So I've color coded that in blue, and blue is going to be third place. It's okay, it's not amazing. Remember, attack bikes are core, so they can be buffed with Chapter Master rerolls. Let's move on then to Plasma Inceptors. And the thing about the Inceptors is they're so swingy. They can do as little as 3.6 all the way up to 10.67 based on the number of shots you roll. And because you're shooting a vehicle, you're not going to get any sort of blast rolls there, so it's just going to be a bit random. However, if we look at the Salt Plasmas that I talked about, they're a very good middle ground. They're going to get those 15 shots. They're actually going to do 8.89 for 165 points as well. So they're going to come in basically second. Damage per 100 points is going to be about 5.38. So I guess what that says is the Inceptors can be better, but I mean you're basing some of your numbers on a swing. I don't like fielding too many things that are swingy, so I guess, you know, do that at your own risk. Next up, let's look at the Storm Cannon, and no one's really running Leviathans with 2 Storm Cannons anymore, I feel like. However, 2 Storm Cannons will do 9.48 damage, paired with those Volkites underneath to do another 1.87, so they will actually, a Leviathan with double Storm Cannon and Volkites will actually kill a Raider each turn, I guess. 11.26 damage, and it is 240 points, so when you actually divide that down, damage per 100 points is actually also in third place, sort of in that same 4.6, 4.7 as your attack bikes with multi-meltas. Eradicators with the heavy melta rifles. Now, I've talked a few weeks about Eradicators with the heavy melta rifles, saying point for point they are the most damaging unit you can field. I don't field any of them, but in some of the tournament winning lists that we see, we often see 1 or 2 squads of heavy melta rifle Eradicators, and I think it's very obvious why. I mean, just look at the numbers here. They will do 9.67 damage, they're only 150 points, so when you divide that down, damage per 100 points is 100% the best. It's the winner again at 6.45. So what's really strange, you would have thought that you could optimize, you know, like I said, strength 7 -1 weapons to do a lot of damage and kill these raiders because they are toughness 6, so that would mean wounding on 3s and it would push them on an invulnerable save, but it doesn't even matter. Where Eradicators are right now, Eradicators, even with their 5-point increase, they're still in such a great place. Like, Eradicators using maybe like Steady Advance, using maybe Chapter Master rerolls, Wisdom of the Ancient on a nearby Dreadnought, you know, these guys are going to kill Redemptors. I think they're not going to kill Redemptors, they're going to kill Raiders, sorry. But yeah, Eradicators are in such a good place. And then next up, we look at the Verenton neutron laser on the Sicarian, and it'll do about 6.67, so with the las cannon doing another 2.07, the heavy bolter doing 0.59 and at 210 points, they'll do 9.33, so this also sort of falls into third place. While the main cannon looks really good on paper, I guess the other parts of the vehicle just don't really perform. I think it was more efficient to add the las cannons and the heavy bolters, so I tried that. So these are my top performers. So it's difficult, right? Because I don't think anyone's running Hellblasters, or maybe a few people are running Assault Hellblasters. I mean, they do sort of make sense for Blood Angels, like you are moving forward all the time, so, and 5 of them will kill a Raider, so in their 165 points, which is pretty much the same cost as your attack bite multi-meltas, kind of different, but also kind of similar, I guess. You know, they still benefit from stuff like the Sanguinary Priest. So yeah, I mean, and obviously the Inceptors are in there swingy as well. So the units that we tend to run anyway, right? Eradicators, attack bikes, Inceptors. I guess these things are all popular right now in the meta. They're all really strong, so it makes sense that they're all in there. They're still going to be point for point just about the best units that we can take to deal with the Raiders. The Storm Cannon on the Leviathan, the double Storm Cannon, it's surprising to me. It's nice to see that maybe there is a place or a use for the double Storm Cannon, but yeah, I mean, it does feel like the Leviathans are just a little bit weaker, but I mean, they did come down about a third in points cost, so 240 points for a 14 wound model with permanent duty eternal and a 2+, 5 double plus. I mean, Leviathans are still good, they're still survivable. I still think they're my favourite Dreadnought in 9th edition. I do like the Redemptors a lot, but I guess Weight of Fire, and I mean, I guess if you were going to use the Storm Cannon in other games, it could hose down a ton of infantry. Not going to do much anti-armor work, but it can absolutely hose down a ton of infantry, especially 2 wound infantry. So those are our top performers really this week. Now, to get a full picture, I thought what we need to do is look at some other units, and we're going to look at the Contemptor Dreadnought with the 3 different options, because people are really talking a lot about Contemptor Dreadnoughts, especially the one with the twin Volkite coverings. And unfortunately, it only does 6.6 damage for 150 points, so it's coming in at around 4 for damage per 100 points, and that includes the mortal wounds. As I say, they are quite swingy getting those mortal wounds through. The Twin Kara's Assault Cannon performs really badly at like 2.2 damage per 100 points, and the autocannons, the twin autocannons, performs really, really badly as well, which again is that strength 7 -1. It doesn't even matter. I guess like they're just in there at 2.78 damage, so very poor. So other options are a Fire Strike turret, and I own a Fire Strike turret. I wasn't sure it was ever going to get onto the field. It still might not, but it is interesting to see because they are 90 points and they do get 6 autocannon shots. They are damage per 100 points coming in reasonably decently at 4.9. I mean, they do have a decent range. Maybe there's a situation here where you could take a couple of Fire Strike turrets to hold backfield objectives or something. I'm not entirely sure how you use them. I haven't fielded them, but I mean, point for points here, they seem to be doing okay. I then also threw in my Redemptor last with the Macro Plasma on Supercharged because I use the Redemptor a lot. I'm running 2 of them at the moment, and I just wanted to be like, am I stupid taking the Redemptor? Should I just really be taking heavy metal rifle eradicators or even regular eradicators, right? Are they just a better choice, and are the Redemptors a bit obsolete? So I worked out the Redemptor Macro Plasma on the average number of shots is 3.11, the Onslaught Cannon is 1.19, the Stormbolter is 0.4, the Rocket Pod is another 1.199, so that comes in at like basically just under 6, 5.93, divided it down, it actually comes in at 3.2. So the Redemptor isn't really very good, I guess, on an average roll. However, if you do roll that 6 on the number of shots, then it's going to come in at 4.4, and like I've mentioned in the slide, it's going to swing. So the Redemptor can actually swing all the way up to, you know, similar to those high performing units from the previous slide, like your Attack Bites with Multi-Metas, like your double Storm Cannon Leviathan, but it can also swing down. I guess the one difference is, or the one thing to consider with the Redemptor, it does also have that potential minimum damage 4 fist, which you can get 6 attacks with. And the enemy kind of need to deal with them, right? Because they can't let the Redemptors just walk across the battlefield and chew them up with their fists. So I'm actually okay, I think, with the Redemptors, just because they provide a target for my enemies that kind of need to be dealt with. So yes, they can do a bit less damage, and I guess they could swing the other way down to where, you know, their damage output and shooting can be poor. But I think the Redemptors are actually still an okay choice because of their survivability, their high movement, and their number of attacks in close combat. So, yeah, I mean, but looking at this, it is definitely raises some questions about the validity of my current list with 2 Redemptors and 3 Attack Bite Multi-Metas. Like, maybe we need to swing towards more Eradicators and maybe 1 Redemptor. There's just always that question mark. If you only have 1 Dreadnought, will it just get shot off the table at the beginning of the game? The rule of 2 is something that people very much tier to with Dreadnoughts. If you have 2 of them, they always seem to survive. For a little while at least, if you have 1 of them, it always just gets shot off the table in turn 1. So yeah, it's an interesting place that we are with Drukhari. Doesn't seem like there's any weapon that's going to be super efficient at taking out those raiders. And I think if we talk a little bit about tactics now, you know, I just think in comparison, if you compare it up to the Impulsor is 125 points, it's toughness 7, it's only got 1 better armor save, it can take like half the number of models, and it's got like a stubber compared to that Dark Lance, and also it's got no melee, right? So just for 85 points, those Raiders are in an incredibly strong place right now. And I guess the main thing that I'm seeing here is like a lot of the Space Marine weapons are still quite swingy, you know, like in 9th edition, it feels like a lot of weapons have been changed to be like, you know, D3+3, or, you know, the last Talons and stuff for Space Marines maybe just came in too early because they're still D6. So with the swinginess of a bunch of our weapons, stuff like Raiders are going to be a big problem. Now, as mentioned, we really need to open up those transports, and a few units were very close to opening them up, right? Like the Inceptors, I suppose, could do it based on the number of shots. The Storm Cannons could obviously do it. The Attack Bikes and Eradicators can do it. So what I did was I actually did some of the math again with the Chapter Master rerolls included here. And if you include Chapter Master rerolls on our Attack Bikes, they actually now do 10.08 damage to a Raider. So they will, one squad of Attack Bikes will kill a Raider from full health, excuse me. And what that actually means is the Chapter Master rerolls are providing a 33% damage increase on Attack Bikes. Now, I mean, that's pretty good, right? 33% increase. It just costs 40 points. I've been using Chapter Master as an upgrade to my Captain now for a while, and I've been generally recommending it to people, but I've not been saying the numbers, right? And there's your numbers. 33% more damage on your Attack Bikes. And I guess that would kind of flow into anything that you put it on, right? And that, I guess that's basing it on like a BS of 3. So I then tested it on the Heavy Melter Rifle Eradicators because I just wanted to make sure that my math was sane. On the Heavy Melter Rifle Eradicators, you actually get a damage output of 34%. So you get 1% more on the already overpowered unit, go figure. But yeah, like I said, I think Eradicators are probably undercosted. I think this Raider is probably undercosted. But yeah, so Chapter Master rerolls, they are so worth it. It's 100% the right call if you have the points, or possibly even sacrifice one model out of another unit to get those 40 points, to get those Chapter Master rerolls. Obviously, if you use them on something like a Redemptor, you can get insane value out of them because you can use them in both the shooting and the close combat phase, which is great. But yeah, highly recommend Chapter Master rerolls, and I think they're going to make a bit of difference here. You know, if I'm playing against Dark Elder and I know that my Attack Bikes will not kill the Raider, but with Chapter Master rerolls they will kill the Raider, then it makes my life a bit easier. And also, hopefully some of these numbers help you guys prevent splitting fire, right? Because like, quite often I guess if I was going to attack maybe like a toughness 6, 10 wound transport, which the Raider is, I would probably in my head think, oh, my 6 multi-meltas with rerolls will kill it. But in reality, no, they won't. That 5+ invulnerable save is it's borderline super strong, I guess. So hopefully some of these numbers will help you guys plan for the next time you fight against Drukhari. Will realise the strength of their transports and just be able to be a bit better equipped to deal with them. So finally, let's talk about my thoughts on this and what we can do about it, or what we can build into our list to help us. And I've been reviewing on this channel now competitive army lists and tournament winning lists, etc. from Blood Angels tournaments across the globe for a while, and I'm going to put a link to the playlist at the top of the video, so if you want to check out all those videos you can. But I think it's the usual suspects that you're going to see in those videos. It's going to be the Inceptors, it's going to be the Eradicators, it's going to be the Attack Bikes. Not too many people, bar myself, are running Redemptors, and Redemptors are providing good value for me internally, and I think I just like playing around Dreadnoughts. So I mean, you can also watch my videos on the channel. We play a live game every Monday, and you know, my list with the 2 Redemptors in it was 11 wins in a row, so it was doing very well too. But I think the tournament winning lists prove just really how strong those Eradicators, you know, the Attack Bikes and the Inceptors are. And it's kind of sad, you know, because I guess people are seeing those Contemptors as a nice option, but their damage just isn't there. The Leviathan with the Storm Cannon, again, it's a pretty interesting option, but I mean, I think it's quite niche to actually put one in your list to just deal with Raiders. And then obviously if you do take a Leviathan, the issue you've got with the Leviathan right now is you have to give up like a HQ unit, right? Because you'll probably want that Tech Marine to keep it alive and put it on the 2+ ballistic skill, and it's not core. So yeah, I guess Dark Eldar / Drukhari are going to be very, very difficult for us to deal with at the moment. As I say, if they're running a lot of these transports, we 100% have to open them up, and we probably have to try and stay out of charge range of the models within, which is going to be very tricky. With their close combat units if possible. Now, like I said, I've been recommending 500 plus, maybe 500 to 600 points of shooting in Blood Angels armies for a while now, probably since like September last year. since I made that switch from basically all melee. When I was all melee, I had maybe a 50% win rate. When I made the switch to include 500, 600 points, and I'm not including the Whirlwind. I don't think of the Whirlwind as a shooting unit right now. I'm just thinking of the Whirlwind as suppression fire. So when I made the change to 500, 600 points of shooting, I went from a 50% win rate player to, I believe, 21 out of the last 22 games we've played on this channel have been wins, right? So we know our lists, and we do exceptionally well having that shooting early. And I think another thing that I want to say about that was, if you watch any of my games, you'll find that my Chapter Master, who is arguably my most melee damaging character, right? Like, he has the Thunderhammer with that free reroll and free wound each turn. He has an Infernal Pistol, which up close, free reroll and free wound. And you know he's super tanky with his 7 wounds, his 6 toughness, his free save, reroll, his 2+ normal save, 4+ invulnerable save, 5 triple+ feel no pain. Like, he is arguably a beast of a melee character. Like, he could run straight forward and the enemy could shoot him with, I can't remember, it was like 200 some bolt guns and they won't kill him. But I'm sitting him at the back for probably like 2 turns. So turn 1, we pick something, it's usually the Tat Bikes, they get Chapter Master rerolls. Turn 2, we pick something, they get Chapter Master rerolls. Turn 3, we usually pick something else and then he goes. And usually in turn 3 when he goes, sometimes we use those overcharged engines to get him up in range of the Sanguinary Guard to provide that reroll 1s and also give them the +1 to hit from their special ability. So I like this strategy a lot. I think it provides a lot of value to Blood Angels. So just keep that in mind. If you're struggling to open up Drukhari transports, you're not running a Chapter Master, you're not running 500 or 600 points of shooting, then go back through these slides, have a look at some of the units that did well, and maybe just think about switching up your list a little bit. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and leave me a comment down below about like your experiences against Drukhari. Is there anything that you wish that I'd included? And also remember, we do have a Facebook group and a Discord and a Patreon. All these things you can find in the video description. So if you want to interact with the community or myself a little bit more, you can do that down below. I hope to see you in the next video. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.